Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Picard Season 2, Episode 7. It is called Monsters. So full spoilers for the episode, as always. I tried to give that a little gravitas. For whatever reason, I don't know why. So yeah, we're going to talk about this terrible episode of Picard. So, I mean, before we go any further, how much do you think you're going to fight me on that statement?
It's not my favorite episode.
Okay, so you basically agree, but you're not willing to admit that it's less than like a 9.8.
Oh, it's still a 10. That's how these work.
Okay.
But I did struggle with this one.
It's still a 10, but I struggled with it.
I did. There's a lot of sets that look like they came off of the Hercules, the legendary journey. These dungeons and stuff.
Yeah, there's both some bad sets in what's meant to be like, Chateau Picard, like the dungeon area, and then there's also some really kind of like obvious green screen, like when when Raffi and like Seven are like on a street, and like it's clearly they're clearly not actually on a street. It's clearly a green screen shot, and it's like I get it was the pandemic when you shot this and other things, but like it's a street.
Do you think that's why all the cast is so separated all the time? It's just because of pandemic stuff? I mean, obviously, like, P-Stew has to be very careful because he's very fragile.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I can understand the reason why, even before, like, pandemic things that are concerned, or why you split up your ensemble cast into different plots. Like, it makes sense to me anyway. So I don't really feel that being too intrusive on it, but I certainly... The green screen of something that doesn't feel like it should be green screened because you're doing it for either money reasons or logistical reasons is a little frustrating, because like once my eye notices that the background's like got a disconnect, and I'm like, this is just a street. Like, okay, maybe the exact street you want in LA is hard to like use and it would cost a lot of money, but you know what, it doesn't have to be that exact street. Like any generic street would probably do you here. like there's nothing special about the street. So I don't know, that bugs me a bit, but that's not this episode's big problem. This is more nitpicky stuff than the big problems. And I will say it was nice to see Gaius Baltar in all his glory. If you don't know who I'm talking about, Gaius Baltar was the character he played on Battlestar Galactica. He is the therapist in Picard's mind who is revealed later on to actually be Picard's father, which is weird to get my head around. But sure, we'll go with it. Yeah, like right from the start, I mean, I was at least relieved when Picard woke up like halfway through the episode, because I was like so done with this in his head stuff. Like I was so done with like little kid Picard running around thinking he was in a fantasy story. I was so done with Irish lady running around trying to help him and talking about dragons and shit and monsters.
It definitely didn't go in the direction that I thought it was going to go from last week, because I really thought this would be like she's going to show up in his mind and he's going to have this fantasy about her and how much his relationship with her means to him, and then she would have this revelation about that. It didn't go in that direction at all.
It's a good job he's an old man, because if this was like a teenage boy's mind having a fantasy about the woman getting into his head, it would be a bit of a minefield.
Yeah, I don't think that stops when you become an old man. I don't know if you know this, but the woman singing at the bar is Patrick Stewart's actual wife, who I believe is even younger than the woman playing Laris in the show. So maybe it's not that much of a stretch for him to fall in love with Laris.
Well, my problem was never the age difference, because I don't think there's actually that much of a difference. My problem was just that Patrick Stewart felt too old to be in a romance plot. Like him making googly eyes and almost kissing someone just felt weird. It was like watching your great grandfather like going for a kiss.
Yeah, I suppose.
The actual difference in age wasn't really what bothered me, per se.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was mostly just Patrick Stewart's age.
Because she's, I mean, the actress is actually, I think, about 60, and she looks good for her age, honestly.
Yeah.
But it was never the difference. It was just Patrick Stewart just feeling like he was too old for the part.
Yeah.
Or for the story.
We talked about
I
that
should
quite
say.
a bit, so it's all right.
Yeah, the fantasy stuff I just found kind of tedious. It felt like time wasting. It felt like, I mean, it introduces an idea towards the end of it, which is a little interesting in that, like, we reveal that Picard's mother suffered from mental illness, and this idea that the father was this villain might not be as true as Picard once thought it was, and maybe it is, and he's still an asshole, but there's more to it than just what he maybe thought. It was, it was a bit too two-dimensional. There's a clear villain, a clear good guy.
He has memories. I think that's why also you get like this younger father that you see, and not like an old man that Picard would more than likely think about. It's because he's thinking about him when he was a child, and he would be in this age.
Yeah, plus he mentions that he never lived as to as old as Picard did, so it would be weird if there was like an older man than Picard, because he never lived that long. Well,
even just somebody with like, more whitish hair or something. I guess this guy's kind of, salt and pepper, but yeah. I mean, he looks like a dad, the dad's age for, 7 or 10-year-old Picard or whoever old he is.
Yeah. Maybe pushing it a bit, because I think the actor's about 50 now, probably. But no, it makes sense that this is the age he was when he was a kid. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
Because I
like the uniform too. It reminds me of First Contact.
Yeah, I noticed the uniform, the sort of the previous era next gen uniform.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think that idea introduces by the end of it's kind of interesting, but I did not give a shit about like see them running around the dungeon and Laris, or that's not even her name. That's that's a proper Irish lady's name. This Irish lady's got a different name, but like running around in the dungeon and talking to young Picard with his crown on. Or even just that scene right at the start when he first starts telling the story in the space therapy, and it's like him and his mother, and like she's dressed as an elf or something, or
like a queen or something.
Yeah, she's a queen.
Right?
Yeah, and there's a book with these like goofy outfits on, and I'm like, oh, this is like, oh god, what is this episode going to be? The stuff that's not in his head is definitely better, although there's still some rough stuff later on that I didn't like as well, with Guinan.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. I really wasn't I wasn't really into the dream stuff or the but I do understand what they're going for, at least, and I like the reveal that his father wasn't really the monster that he thought of when he was a kid. It reminds me of, did you see Saving Mr. Banks? The movie about the woman who wrote Mary Poppins, and like Tom Hanks plays Walt Disney. Well, okay, so her father.
You never paused for me to give an answer. You just kept describing it.
Yeah, I was looking at your reaction. It looked pretty like, no, I haven't seen that. Tara, why would you even ask? I thought you knew me.
I mean, you got the right answer, but
okay.
You said, have you seen Saving Mr. Banks? And I was going to answer, and then you started like really describing it in depth, and just in case I'd forgotten what it was, and I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Well, also for everyone else, so I'm going to get more into it. It's it's about the woman who wrote Mary Poppins. And we keep getting flashbacks of her with her father and how she just loved her father. He was so much fun. He'd always play with her, and like mom was always the strict one, but dad was super fun. And then, as the movie continues, we realize, well, yeah, he's fun to her because he's a drunk. Like he's not just like he drinks and then he go and is able to play with her. Like he is hammered every single time that he sees her. And so she thinks that he's just like, oh, crazy fun dad who likes to play games and, but really, no, this is a really bad father. So it reminded me of the storyline that's going on here where he's like, yeah, my mom was great. She was so inspirational. And when I was 7, we would play these great games and, lived in a fantasy world, but in reality, and dad was always the strict one, but in reality, like dad was trying to keep the family unit together while his mother was going through this condition.
Yeah, it's the idea that from a 7-year-old's perspective who's not been told and explained to that his mother's sick, he just doesn't see what's wrong with it. I mean, I don't really have a specific memory really like this, but I didn't know until I was older that my father was diagnosed bipolar. Like, I don't know like how early in my life that was, but like I didn't know that growing up. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then when I'm older and I realized that, and that wasn't the only health issue my father had. So it was kind
but
of.
I'm sure it explained a lot of things in your mind when you look back on memories.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I don't know if I have any extreme examples necessarily that go with the drama of a TV show which has these specific like fantasy adventures that he went on with his mother that turned out, oh no, that was her having like a mental break and I was like going along for the ride. But it's an interesting concept, and it did certainly add more depth, and it's much better than all the things I was worried about they might do, like, oh, the mother was abducted by the Borg long before the Borg ever showed up.
Yes, I was worried about that too. I'm glad it was just a very real thing, and it was from the perspective of Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Picard when he was a 7-year-old. And, it makes a lot of sense that it would be this fantastical world with monsters in it. I like the painting of the monsters, actually. I thought the mural was kind of cool.
Conceptually, I like this idea now. I will say that I don't like how any of it's been filmed or portrayed in terms of like how it's looked. Because right from the start of this... I was
struggling with it, but, when they explained it at the end, like I can accept it more, on a rewatch or something.
But not even just this episode, though. Right from the start of the season, I hated that first scene. That very first scene of the season, which was like Picard like remembering this memory of his mother. I didn't like how it was directed. I didn't like how it looked. I complained about it in that review for the first episode, and I still don't like how any of these scenes look. So that's still a problem for me, and it still like mars it because it's like, okay, I at least conceptually appreciate what it's trying to do now, but now I'm still frustrated watching. I'm not enjoying the scenes. I'm just kind of.
I would say like it definitely makes me look at them differently than by the end than I did in the beginning or even during, where I was just like, what the hell is going on? I actually have bigger problems with all the rest of the stuff in the episode.
We'll get to it. Don't you worry.
Like everything I have a problem with.
I have obviously, so we've covered pretty much the dreams and what like I didn't like how it looked. It felt nonsensical at times until it got to its point where I genuinely felt like is this a filler episode? Are we just killing time? And I actually got kind of frustrated that when they got to the end of the dream stuff, they kind of made it clear, oh no, there's still like more of this to be told. Like, well, there's a key and Picard's not opened the last door yet, and there's more to be revealed later. But we're not doing that this episode. I'm like, really? We're not wrapping this up?
Well, we only have 3 episodes left, so they don't have much time.
So that annoyed me a little bit because I'm like,
you know what I was getting vibes of? I was getting vibes of like that Halloween episode of the original series with like the black cat and the witches and stuff like that. Which it's a fun episode. And actually, when it explains it at the end, it's like, okay, this makes sense in the world of Star Trek. But in the beginning, when you watch it, you're like, what the hell is going on? Why are they in a haunted house? Like, why are there witches?
Yeah, it wasn't really that enjoyable to go through the actual scenes. And a lot of the dialogue, like the mumbo jumbo between Picard and Gaius Baltar, I felt like... I'm happy to see Gaius Baltar, but like most of this dialogue back and forth just feels like they're padding. It just feels that they're talking in circles without really saying much of anything. Mm-hmm. I wasn't getting into like the back and forth. I wasn't getting into what they were actually saying. It was just all blah. So that's the other big problem I had with this like first half of the episode and all this stuff that's in Picard's head. The other big thing I had a problem with is like, okay, so. Picard needs to like talk to Q because one of the things that they heard in his mind is that the you can learn the best lessons from your enemy, and he's like, okay, so Q's trying to teach me something, and he's been trying to teach me something basically every time I've met him over the last 30 years, but I'm going to try and like stop letting him have the advantage and whatever. I want to try and get to the bottom of what the lesson actually is. So he goes to see Guinan, who's pissed at him a little bit, and which seems to be her like status quo in this timeline. Actually, she's just always pissed at.
I like this actress. Like the more I see of her, the more I'm like, oh sure, she's actually doing a pretty good Guinan. She's doing a pretty good young Whoopi. I can hear like little bits where I'm just like, that's her. She
feels like young Whoopi Goldberg. I don't know if she feels like young Guinan in the sense that, again, I'm kind of bringing Time's Arrow into this, but I wouldn't say that Guinan in that episode in the 1890s feels like this Guinan.
Yeah.
She seems a lot different, but she does remind me, I agree, of younger Whoopi in the sense that not younger than what she was in Next Gen, because what I'm thinking of came after Next Gen, but like the movies she was in, like when I think of her in other things,
like
I'm
Color
definitely
Purple and stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking Sister Act, but sure, like, so some of the attitude and like some of her mannerisms, like she's definitely dealing some of that, but more so from other Whoopi Goldberg movies and projects.
Color Purple's a great movie. You should watch that.
I've never seen Color Purple. Yeah, it's a Spielberg that I've not
Spielberg, yeah.
gotten around to yet. I don't expect I'm going to like it as much as Duel, just for the record.
Duel's a masterpiece.
Do you know, it's going to get really confusing. There's a new film coming out called Duel, but not duel as in like a duel between people. Duel as in like two things.
I saw it. I was looking at Alamo Drafthouse tickets, and it said Duel was like in theaters. I'm like, oh shit! Like, are they doing a re-release of Duel for like some anniversary or whatever? But it was a different movie, so I was very disappointed. Very fast.
Yeah, the premise is insane. So it's Karen Gillan who is dying from a terminal illness and decides she wants to spare her family from the pain of it. So it's obviously like a near future thing, and she basically commissions a clone of herself to be created so that her friends and family won't have to live without her. But then she makes a miraculous recovery, and basically the courts decide that to pick which one gets to continue as her, they have to fight to the death in a duel. That's awesome.
I actually really like that concept. I want to see the movie now.
It's a B movie concept though. It's silly as shit.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
But
that's great.
I'm not against it. It sounds kind of sci-fi actually. It might be an ace episode. but yeah, anyway.
Anyway, should we summon Quark? Because I brought what we need, or not Quark, or Q, because I brought what we need to summon him.
Yeah, I hated this scene. I hated what
you know, like the Q is a genie in a bottle.
I hated it. I don't understand why.
I just gotta shake my camera around a bit. Ooh.
Yeah, this was stupid. This was absurdly. This was magic bullshit.
Star Trek, yeah. I mean, even last season had some magic stuff to it, and I was just like, I don't know, like this is kind of crossing a line of where it's not enough technobabble to justify this.
Yeah,
I mean, I suppose that, you know, Allurians, I think that's what Guinan is. Like, maybe they're on a very similar level as the Q from the Q Continuum, to where, like, because she explains that there's like this Cold War that had happened between her species and the Q, and you know she does the finger things or the hand the praying mantis pose that she does in, you know, the episode where Q comes on board the Enterprise. So I don't know. I mean, even the fact that like she's a bartender because her species, or yeah, her race has like this culture around drinking.
Yeah, that feels a little like one of those prequel things where we want to give something more meaning. It's like, oh hey, we associate her with bartending, so we're going to like make that like a part of like her people's culture to give it more meaning.
I'm not saying that it
like
can't
that.
be done well. So maybe they can elaborate a bit more, but like the whole magic stuff that was happening.
I do not mind the idea of the lore of the Q Continuum and her people having some sort of war in the past or a Cold War in the past. That's all somewhat interesting. But the moment she's like, we'll summon a Q, and she pulls like a lid off of a bottle. So she because as soon as she whipped out this bottle and said, oh yeah, this is what we need to like summon someone from the Continuum, and he's like, well, why? I was like, where's this going? This is stupid. And it got even more stupid. Like, it got more stupid. She pulls the cork out, and like the room starts shaking. She starts screaming like that. And that was the moment where I just started laughing and went, "This is shit. This is just garbage." It's when she started yelling in the middle of it.
I did not enjoy this scene very much.
It was terrible.
About it.
It was a terrible scene.
The guy that ends up showing up is some sort of detective. Do we really believe that he's not a Q?
I think it was FBI, because I'm pretty sure like all the people that come in, like when he says like arrest them. I'm pretty sure they all had FBI like jackets on.
Do we believe that he's not a Q?
Also,
because this was supposed to summon a Q, and this guy walks in.
I think I recognize this actor. Yeah, he's from The Shield. It looks a little bit different because that's been a good.
Actually, he's also from Star Trek Voyager. And there's some major theories about why they brought him in, because in the episode, the Voyager that he's in, he plays a temporal cop, essentially, like a military police, but for people who time travel. And he's much younger in that episode. So the fact that they brought this guy back and there's some time travel shenanigans going on, like maybe it's just an Easter egg, or maybe he's the same guy. And just like when he shows up here on this Century Earth, he's basically like a Men in Black, or although he's not wearing black, he's the FBI guy saying, we're here to, take you in.
Yeah, I was just going to say he looks much older, so it took me a second to recognize him.
Sorry.
No, that was all good stuff. I just wish you'd wait until I'd finished the sentence. Because then my point feels redundant and old.
Yeah, you probably should have just let it go.
No, never. Ever.
Well, in any case, it's an interesting fan theory if it turns out to be the same guy, just able to check on temporal events to make sure that time's not being messed with too much.
That doesn't sound so bad. I will say that this final part of the scene where he comes in and ultimately arrests them because they got like security footage of him like Picard beaming in outside the bar. This all felt super random, and like, what is this random new direction we're going in? Like 3 episodes from the end of the season, it felt like really sudden, and just at least if he's like some sort of time cop, that'll at least be interesting to me. But I have to say that,
or another Q.
The ending of this episode, well, so now you've explained that, though, I would say it's more likely he's a time cop.
Yeah, more than likely.
In
fact,
say that. I hope he's a
just
time cop, because if this thing actually worked, if this stupid bottle thing worked and summoned a Q, I'm going to be pissed.
That's the thing. Like Guinan says, it's never not worked before. But we also know that Q has basically seemingly lost his ability to use magic powers. So, which I guess, yeah. I mean, technically, magic has always been in Star Trek with the Q species, but whatever, they're just so advanced. But
well, that's the problem with this, though, is like, if you want to tell me some cultures are so advanced that they can snap their fingers and do certain things, I can roll with that because you're not making it silly. This was silly. The bottle and the scream and the room shaking, they were all just silly. It was like some hokey thing out of like an episode of Charmed or something. Like, it was stupid.
Yeah, I didn't love it either. Oh gosh.
And even if it fit in the context, like, this is the thing. Like, it was out of place. That's the even bigger problem with it. It's one thing that I don't like it, because if this was in a show where it fit, I would probably still think it was pretty silly. But at least if it was in a show that had constantly things like this, it would feel it in in style of the show. But this is Star Trek, so this happens, and I'm like, what is this scene doing here? Why have they chosen to present this ability in this way? Because I don't know. I was dumbfounded the entire scene.
I don't know either. I guess they just wanted to keep it on the bartending theme. What I was kind of thinking,
that annoys me,
is
like we know she's a bartender, so everything has to tie back into her being a bartender. Like, she can't have more layers than that.
We know that she's a bartender in 10 forward, so she's still at 10 forward, just in a different location and different time periods. Anyway, I was thinking, this is not so much for you, but for other like Star Trek fans who have watched everything. There's a fantastic episode of Voyager where we meet another Q, and that Q, it's called Death Wish, because that Q has literally experienced everything that a Q could experience, and he just wants to die. And no one in the Q continuum has ever died. So it's like this big trial, on whether or not they should allow this Q to die. And there's all this talk about like there could be, we don't know what the consequences are of a Q dying. And now I'm wondering if this Q dying or choosing to die, which I know it's a spoiler for you, but whatever, you'll forget by the time you watch it, has actually caused some sort of rippling effect within the continuum to where, because we know in Discovery, that the Q have not been seen or heard from in like 600 years or something, which maybe is adding up to why like they're slowly losing their abilities to use their, their powers, and maybe they do all, I don't know, maybe there is some sort of rippling effect from this Q, which by the way is played by Gary Graham, the greatest actor of all time.
How did you leave that till the end? How is that not what you led with in that entire story?
Just wanted to sprinkle that in because if that's true, then that would mean Garrett Graham would be the most important character in all of Star Trek for the series of Picard anyway. So just want to throw that out there. But I don't know. I don't know if other people have been speculating about that. But it got me thinking.
I mean, that all sounds all fine. The problem is, though, is that none of it really helps any of the things that are bad about this episode.
You know what I kind of wish is if they were doing an actual, season about mental health, and I sort of wish that they would just focus it on Q and sort of go in the direction of like a Logan, but with what happens when, Q is losing his mind. And how interesting that could be, because it's already a character that we know and that we have some affinity for, and we know what he's capable of. And to see someone like that, lose their mind or have these, go through these challenges that maybe can be associated with aging, and then it would be kind of appropriate that Q looks older, if he is in fact like dying, or his mind is going, I don't know. It's just a thought.
Yeah. I'm trying to wrap my head around some of the choices, because the season, while not perfect, had at least some fun concepts that it was playing with, like with the doing the Voyage Home style stuff. And I can appreciate the intent and the ambition of trying to tackle mental health and your main story for a season of Star Trek, but it's kind of boiling down to some things that I don't think are executed that well. You've got, from the Picard side of things, with Picard's mother, you've got these really hokey flashback / dream sequences that we're dealing with, which I don't think are doing a great job of really giving it any weight. The other side of it, I suppose, you've got Jeri and her, what she's going through with like the Borg Queen kind of like getting into her, and like her feelings of loneliness and isolation and dealing with that. It's interesting, don't get me wrong, and there's some fun concepts from it, but like this episode, like we have like two characters just chasing her down throughout the streets of LA and sort of like tracking where she's went, and she went into a bar and smashed a window. I can see what it's doing, because I forgot to mention last episode what the Queen took over, because basically she got a hit of dopamine. Like basically because Jurati felt a lot of like happiness, it was enough to sort of like unlock the door for the Queen, right? And now she's chasing more happiness because that'll let her take over. The parallel to I mean, drugs, sure, like that's kind of there, for sure. Like the idea that there's the monster inside you that's craving just the feeling good, like the hit, that's kind of there. But I think I'm kind of leaning more towards thinking about it as like the exploitation of someone wanting to be happy, and the Borg Queen's more like infiltrating through like promising happiness, and that can tie
join my club kind of a deal.
I mean that you can apply that to so many things in capitalism. You can apply that to like just advertising. You can apply that to anything that's trying to make you like give up part of yourself, whether that be money, your time, whatever. But like that sort of manipulation, and so the idea that it's like endorphins that that sort of unlocks her being able to take over.
Did you like Steven's scientific method of smashing a bottle and going dopamine?
Not really.
Like
I thought it was a bit silly.
I thought it was so unnecessary.
I don't. It was kind of weird because she kind of it's like she had to like see how it felt and goes, oh, that felt good, I've got a theory now. I don't know, that's a bit odd.
Yeah, it was a bit silly. I also thought it was just odd that I mean, Jeri walks into this nightclub where, you know, this woman's singing on stage, and like if she's trying to reach that dopamine hit, well, the last time she got a dopamine hit was when she was singing on stage. So I thought, oh, she's going to go on stage and sing again. But instead, she just smashes a window and leaves. It was so anticlimactic.
Yeah, the smashing the window felt really random and didn't make much sense to me either. It was, I thought it was going to like show me something else, like this was leading to something, and it just cut away, and I was like, oh, that was it? She just smashed the window? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, maybe she's just trying to get the police to chase after her so she can get a rush. But I don't know. It was an odd. It was very anticlimactic. I mean, the show kind of has this repeat thing of like building up to this tease at the end, and then we get the reveal of what that tease is in the next episode, and it's always like, oh, that's it. Like, I don't know. I was expecting something bigger or something, you know, more. Yeah. Something more exciting than that.
Yeah, the only thing I really liked some of this episode, to be honest, was Rios and Doctor Lady. Like some of their stuff I thought was kind of, you know, nice and pleasant.
Yeah, it was sweet. The kid was pretty funny in it. Why he brings her to the La Serena is just mind-boggling. Like, why would he do that?
Because he wants to impress her, okay? Because he's had to lie long enough that she's starting to, you know, she's like saying, oh, I hope you're a good guy, but I'm not really sure. And he's like, you know what? You've already seen the fancy tool that I beamed in, so, you know, I'm just going to show off.
Which she was able to use, like, without, I don't know, it's a bit, that was silly to be fair, also.
I mean,
he's like, you're a doctor, you can maybe this thing is designed so that if you know anything about anatomy, then you'll be good. You can use it.
Well, no, I don't think it was that. I think it was just simpler than that. It was just all you have to do is aim it and go. All you have to understand as a doctor is the effect it's having. So he explains that it's going to do this to his head. So just point and use. The only important part is she has to know if she's doing too much of it, so she can stop. Like that's really all she needs to know. Which I assume her basic doctor knowledge will allow her to know. From his, from his heart rate or whatever. So I can get on board with that. I think he just wanted to show off and impress her. I think he wanted to show the kid a spaceship, which then he's like, I'm going to touch everything. Like, was his attitude. That's
a funny line. Yeah. I think that if anything, he's like trying to put, you know, Raffi and Seven and Picard even in a corner to be like, look, she's already seen everything, so she might as well come back with us.
Yeah, I can see him staying behind. Although I do expect that he's still going to be in season 3, admittedly, so I don't know how that works. But unless
season 3's got a pretty big cast, minus Will Wheaton.
Unless season 3 retires like almost all of this cast, because season 3 is just going to be next gen cast, because it's possible.
That would be all right. I mean, I like these characters actually, but yeah. But anyway, I thought that scene was just like, oh, I don't know. I thought it was so dumb that he brought her to the La Serena, like just to show off. It just seemed like such an amateur move. Like you could have done anything else to be like just taking her to a spaceship. That was a bit much.
Yeah, there's some stuff because basically the Raffi and Seven realize there's some Borg stuff in the computer system. They see evidence that's inside Jeri, and effectively what they're setting up here is that they're trying to hunt down Jeri, because if she gets strong enough and properly takes over, I mean, I think Raffi even asked the question, how long until she's strong enough to start assimilating people? And it's like, oh, this is the birth of a new queen, which could be like, and if that happens, then the timeline's going to be screwed anyway, because now the Borg are going to take over in the past. So,
yeah,
you know, very different.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that Jeri is now like the main villain of the show, although we still have stuff to explain with Soon and Q, which I'm sure will wrap up nicely. I also I like that Seven is with a woman. I do really like that. You know, it was teased obviously at the end of season 1 where her and Raffi were like, you know, touching fingers and stuff. We're like, oh, what's going on here? And the reason I really like it is just because when, you know, Voyager's ratings were going down, they decided, well, let's bring in like a former Borg. And then, Rick Berman's like, let's make her a babe. Let's make her a hot babe and put her in a cat suit and make sure her like tits are out all the time. So like we can bring in, all the pervy guys to ooh and ah at her the whole time. And, and Voyager up until that point was not that kind of show. Like that's why they had, a female captain who was never really sexualized. And that was, on purpose. And instead they brought in this character who's just all boobs and legs and has to walk around in a cat suit and heels in a costume so tight that the actress couldn't breathe in it. So I kind of like that now she's got this, F you basically to guys, and she's dating who she wants to date, and it's a woman. And I think that's awesome. But
I love how
I don't really buy that her and Raffi are a couple, or like used to be a couple. Like the way they don't really like have this dialogue or like body language that they've been intimate together.
Well, it's barely in the show. Like we've barely seen any of it. There's a couple of references, and that's kind of it. It's very thin. I do love that you found a way to try and say something positive, because this episode's a turd and there's almost nothing positive actually in the episode. So you found a little rant to go.
I've had a hard time with this one, but at the same time, yes, I do love Star Trek, and I'm going to try to find the positives where they are at, But
it's actually healthy to admit when there's a turd, because you can demand better and demand that they actually live up to the standards that Star Trek should have.
I don't want this show to just be two people, being angry about a TV show that a lot of people really like, I don't want that to be the case. And I always want to root for Star Trek.
Well, not to be fair, it's not like I've been like nothing but negative all season.
You called it a turd.
I said this episode's a turd.
Okay, sure.
Right? And you said that you didn't want this review show to just be us shitting on it, but I don't think we have been this season. I think it's not been all positive, but it's been a very balanced. There's been good, there's been bad, there's been things that have worked and haven't. But I do think this episode is just a turd. Like it is. There's very little redeeming qualities for this episode.
I don't love it, but we're also like, Star Trek isn't what it used to be in the sense of how they tell the story. So I think I don't want to just call something bad until I know where all the storylines lead. Because maybe if things work out at the end, then maybe this episode will be better. There's definitely stuff I'm always not going to like I don't like the scene with the bottles. I don't like the genie in a bottle concept for summoning a Q.
The destination in hindsight may make some things better, but I don't think that means that you should hold back when something does not work in the moment. And
well, what do you think about what I said?
Which part?
About the whole like Seven and Raffi not feeling like a couple.
Oh sure. Yeah. I mean they have. It's. I would say that they have a decent enough chemistry that it doesn't like jar with me whenever it comes up. Whereas I would say that some other things do feel a bit more awkward. Like whenever Rios and Jeri have had little moments, it feels kind of forced to me. This feels less forced and more just non-existent. Like it's like oh, this kind of happened off camera and we just kind of accept it and just have to go with it. But at the very least, when they're bickering, they do have kind of like a, like, I don't know.
It's more of like I guess more like a buddy cop, but
yeah.
But it's still, I don't know. I'm expecting more of a, like they have history together that is off camera, but that's okay if they can act in a way to where I buy it. I mean, maybe their body language and stuff isn't really coming through to me.
Maybe if we saw even just a hand on a cheek occasionally, just to give us some,
I understand that they're like taking a little break in their relationship right now, and that's I think Raffi's doing a pretty good job, at least, of trying to, the actress who plays her, of trying to, portray that she's heartbroken about it, at least, trying to distract herself with the big emergency that's happening and focusing on Elnor and not Seven. But I don't know. I think I need a little bit more from them just to buy that they're, that they like each other even.
I think this is at the bottom of the priority list for me because it get in the way as much, but I totally get why it's not working for you. Like, but I just have too many other problems to be as worried about it. Too many fundamentals that are starting to fall apart, and that's the worrying part, because it is like a super serialized show. This is that when you have episodes 7 out of 10 shit in the bed in your 10 episode story, there is a worry then at that point that this, like, it can't, come back from it. And it doesn't help that one of the, while there was positive things we said about last week's episode, there was definitely some things I didn't like, and one of those things that I didn't like was all the stuff with Sun, and he wasn't even in this episode, and this episode was still a turd. So I'm a little concerned that when you take some of the stuff from this episode and take it forward, and you have him coming back in his plot with his daughter, I'm a little bit worried that we've only got 3 episodes left, and it feels like a lot of these things that feel quite separate right now still have to be resolved, and a lot of them right now aren't feeling super satisfying. The more complex it's got, the more that they've got intertwined with the past, the less it's become about like just a simple mission they can accomplish in, in a sort of Back to the Future, Voyage Home style plot. It's becoming more complex. And I'm not saying it shouldn't be more complex, and I'm not saying that even the ideas aren't good. The idea that, there could be a Borg Queen kind of like forming and attempting to take over present day Earth, that's an interesting idea. The idea of the mental illness stuff is good. It's just that so much of how it's presented, and maybe it's just doing too much, is that a lot of it just feels super rushed. And it's really frustrating when you have a subject like the mental illness stuff, which this idea that Picard has this different like image of who his mother was and who his father was based on what he didn't know as a child, and now he's sort of learning about it. It's frustrating how good an idea that is, and how much of the early scenes in this episode just feel like fluff and like psychobabble going back and forth without much context, because it wants to appear like, oh, we've got mystery. And there's an art to it, because other shows can do this. Other shows do the mystery of it while seeming like they're hinting at the themes better, where you're sort of still getting enough out of it to be intrigued until you get to the core details that it's revealed later. Whereas with this, I felt like I'm just bored and annoyed, and then it revealed the interest, and I was like, oh, okay, that actually is an interesting concept, but I had no fun getting to that point. I was just kind of miserable until that point hit.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's a high bar, but like, nothing's going to beat that Watchmen episode when she takes all the nostalgia drugs and like goes into a dreamlike state for an hour.
Oh, that's so much better. Oh, I mean, that season of Watchmen, that
was a high bar. The whole season was fantastic.
Yeah, one season of Watchmen is better than any of the modern Trek stuff. Like, it's not even close.
Oh, I would agree with that. Yeah. Well, Watchmen's on another level for sure. But like, that's now the bar that I have set for like a dreamlike sequence.
Yeah.
This one was giving me vibes of the Halloween episode from TOS, and even the episode where like Luoxana Troy goes to the holodeck with the clowns and Alexander.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I was worried that it was going to channel that episode.
I can't argue with that.
Which is still a 10.
There is a it's not a 10. There is a reveal this episode. The Irish lady is in fact still a Romulan. She's just got some fancy tech hiding her ears. Although I did laugh. I laughed because when she like pulls out her mind meld like tech, I laughed. It was basically like a fake Vulcan ear that she wears.
Yes, I thought that was funny, but like actually thinking about it, it's like, oh, it's because her ear's probably cloaked, so she has to have that big pointy part in order for it to actually fit on her ear.
So yeah, it seems silly in the moment, because I thought, why you don't, it doesn't have to be any particular shape, so why would you shape it that way? It just feels a bit hokey. But then yeah, when you realize that she does actually have that ear, and this is probably just made to fit her whole ear, it's like, okay, that makes a bit more sense, and now it's not so stupid. But when they revealed that, I was like, wait, why have we been hiding this? Like, why was this like a secret this whole time?
Well, she's not Laris as far as we know, but she is Romulan.
No, but I mean, why like, I get why she's hiding it from the public, because she's not meant, obviously there's not meant to be aliens on Earth, but I mean, why didn't she just admit to Picard immediately, once it was clear that he's from the future and he knows all this stuff? Why wouldn't she just say that she's Romulan? I don't know. I felt like a needless, it was like a mystery for the sake of having, like, or a reveal for the sake of having a reveal, as opposed to having any like added value. Yeah.
Well, I hope next week is better. I'm always going to root for Star Trek. Be better.
When I rag on a bad episode, I want to make this clear because I feel like you really want to play good cop, and I understand why. But when I rag on a bad episode, it's because I'm holding it to a standard because I believe it should and can achieve that standard. I'm holding it to a standard that's set up by not only just other TV and other science fiction, but previous Star Trek. Its own namesake. So when I criticize this, it's because it can be better. And that's always been true. Even the best episode of Picard could have been better, but it's especially true when you get to a turd like this, and that's what this was. This was a turd of an episode.
I mean, maybe it'll still be the case that Q is also going through something that is causing him to put these events in motion, but I do think it would have been cool if we focused the series on what Q is doing to the universe, because he is mentally unstable and is causing like time shifts and if the Borg to show up on Earth too early. And
if they are
whatever.
Smart, there'll be there's only 3 left, but if they were smart, they would pull a Watchman and he would have an episode towards the end where you see everything from his perspective. I'm not actually convinced we're going to get that though from this.
That would be awesome, because that was such a great episode. And that show is so special.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things where I wasn't into a lot of it, and in that scene with Guinan where she's like screaming as the bottles like making the room shake, I was just like, this is I'm not saying it's as bad as this episode, but you know that episode of the original series in season 3, it's the one where like, the guy basically keeps making them do stupid stuff, and like at one point like one of them, like I think it's like Spock or Kirk are on all fours and there's like a little person on their back, and I'm like, this is the sort of like the secondhand embarrassment I'm feeling from this episode is kind of similar to that one.
Yeah. I know that episode.
Yeah. So I do not approve of this one. I do you know what, I'm glad, as much as you played your part, you initially fought me on it, but I'm glad that once we actually started talking about it, you basically agreed with everything I said.
Well, I knew when I was yesterday when I watched it, I was just like, this is gonna be tough, because I want to be singing the praises of Picard, and I'm not at the level where I'm missing Romulan incest villains yet, but it's just this episode was pretty rough for me to watch.
It was traumatic. Tara was weeping. Well,
just knowing that I'm gonna have to talk about it, and I want to be positive, always.
I think that says a lot, though. You shouldn't have to feel worried about talking to me about an episode of TV. I want you to feel comfortable and free to share your opinions. But
well, sure.
But I think it is saying something though that you watched this episode and had this feeling like, oh god, I need to talk to Peter about this, and I'm embarrassed to defend it. Like that. Like if that's the feeling you got, that says a lot.
Well, okay, but like I'm not gonna say that I don't like the show. I do like the show.
No, it's
a lot. I'm just definitely disappointed by this episode, and a lot of the new Trek I do find disappointing.
You can like a show,
but I'm still gonna root for it.
You can still like the show. No one's asking you to say you dislike the show, but you can like a show and still say it has a bad episode. Several, in fact.
Oh yeah, that's true. Most shows I love have bad episodes.
Yeah, as do a lot of mine. So that's normal. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always a beer bad.
Yeah.
That's an episode of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I know.
But yeah,
you've used that one before.
Have I? Okay, I should have picked another one. I should have picked Bad Eggs. Fine, I'll think of a third one.
All right.
Maybe you don't know me well. You've squashed those early rumors that you thought I didn't think you knew me well, but you do. Cool, you do. All right, that is our thoughts on this week's Star Trek Picard. To quote the great Jeff Goldblum / Ian Malcolm. That's one great big pile of shit. So, thank you for joining us. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, all that. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. And if you want to support all the content, over at patreon.com/mailfuzztv, and you can do that for as little as $1 per month. And get some bonuses for your trouble. But that is us. So thank you once again. We'll see you next time. Keep watching TV. Keep watching stuff. You know what? I've been sticking to just the generic, almost cancelled outro for this because it's a new show. But now I'm thinking maybe I should just lean into my custom ones that I do for the other Trek and like Babylon 5 and stuff. So keep watching Star Trek and keep the Q genie in the bottle.